So let's start. Sorry about the little false start we had there, folks, and welcome to this IoT webinar that's being organised by the WLPGA. The other voice you can hear is Andre Pimentel from ISA. My name's David Tyler, and Andre and I have been working on this project this year, and I'll just want to introduce the project and give you a little bit of background as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then Andre will I'll give the floor to Andre, and then he can then give a bit more technical background as to where we are with the program so far. So once again, welcome. Thanks for getting up early in the morning or late at night, depending on. I'm actually speaking from Australia, so it's late afternoon here, and Andre's in Europe. We've organised two webinars today, one for the early morning guys and one for the ones who will come in later today around about 4 o'clock Paris time. So IoT, Internet of Things, and WLPGA. What I want to first of all do is just introduce the subject, and before I do that, just say a little bit about who the WLPGA is. And for those of you who are not familiar with our organization, so we're based in Paris. We have about 8 people in our organization, and all of them are based in Paris except myself. I'm actually based in the west side of Australia, in Perth. And one of the reasons for that is that we have over 270 members, and nearly half of them are actually in the Asia Pacific region. And I found out the other day that Perth is in the same time zone as 2 billion other people in the world. We're in the same time zone as China and the Philippines and Hong Kong and so on, so that it makes it quite convenient for me to be based on the west coast of Australia to access nearly half our membership. Our members are made up of producers of LPG all the way through the distribution chain, including ship owners, traders, LPG marketers, and also we have around 30 LPG associations in the world who are members of ours. We also have some observer members. Recently joined us is the UN. The UNHCR joined us this year as an observer member, and right through to the equipment manufacturers and appliance manufacturers to the consumer. So that's our spread. It's serving the whole LPG value chain. This is our vision. We have a strategic review every 3 years, and this is the vision that we have for this current 3-year period. It's going to be reviewed next year for the 2020 to 2022 period. But at the moment, this is what we do. We're an association that promotes the use of LPG to foster a safer, cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous world. We have 4 key mission goals, and you can see here we have market development, which is one of the key ones, of course, is to stimulate the use of LPG around the world in the many hundreds of uses. We have a standards mission, which ensures that where we can, LPG industries that operate in countries are doing it on a level playing field and according to best practices. We have a communications mission, which works on developing publications and guides and guidelines. And then finally, at the bottom there, we have this innovation and knowledge transfer. And I guess today's webinar is very much, it sort of overlaps all 4, but probably the 2 key ones are standards and innovation. So just quickly, LPG at a glance. We're a fossil fuel. LPG is a fossil fuel, but we like to call ourselves a 5-star fossil fuel. And the key benefits are that it's portable. It can reach even the most remote rural areas. It's a very powerful fuel with a very hot flame. It's versatile, many hundreds of applications. It's very clean, has a very low carbon footprint. And it is in abundant supply at the moment, even though we're seen often as a gap or a bridging fuel. The forecasts are for surplus LPG supplies for the foreseeable future, certainly well beyond 2030. And of course, against that background, we have 3 billion people who have no access to modern energy. And many of those people, they spend half a day getting up in the morning and going out collecting solid fuel, traditional fuel like wood, charcoal, and anything really that burns is often the fuel of no choice for all these people. And we have a product with LPG that can fix that. The problem, of course, is that many of those people have limited disposable income. Often the fuel that they use is free of charge, and you can see these two little kids here collecting charcoal in Africa, and they buy in very small quantities, such as the little tin that you can see there, and that's all they can afford. So one of the big challenges we have as an industry is that we have a very good product, but people can't afford it. And of course, it's not just buying the gas, it's buying all the equipment that goes with it, the cylinder and the regulator and the hose and the appliance. So that's one of the biggest challenges we have. And once we get this traditional fuel burning, it creates a lot of pollution, and people get very sick. So that's one of our key programs, is to move people away from traditional fuels to LPG, and it's one of the biggest challenges we have, and it's actually something that IoT, we believe, can do something about, and we've certainly seen some evidence of that over the last couple of years, and that's something we want to share with everybody today when we go into a little bit more detail. 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, we had no smartphones or tablets. And it's quite amazing when you think today there's well over 1 billion of these things around the world. So earlier this year, we said, well, let's get our heads around what is going on out there with the internet and technology, and see how it can be applied to the LPG business, to the LPG industry. So that's really the background to this project, is to see, first of all, what's going on. It's going on at such a rate that we're probably already out of date, but we wanted to see what's going on out there in the IoT space. I know Andre's got a background in telecommunications, and it's his view that the LPG industry is probably 10 years behind the telecommunications industry with IoT. And the objective is to make the LPG industry safer, smarter, and more efficient. And if you look at the evolution of communications over the last sort of 15 years or so, we've moved from the landline, the land phone line, where we could communicate directly with consumers, to a cellular network, which brought the cost down and gave us a little bit more flexibility. But today we're now looking at the IoT, and the best way to describe the impact of IoT, and I use this little analogy often, is that 10-15 years ago we had small transponders that we could put on equipment, and we had to store everything on that transponder, which made them very expensive. We're talking 15 years ago about sort of €4, €5 for one of these little tiny transponders, and it was just unaffordable and nonsensical and uneconomic to put those on small pieces of asset. So they had limited use on things like trucks and tanks. But with the Internet of Things, we're now having this transponder just behave as a communicator to all that data up in the cloud, and that's the exciting thing. Now it's brought the price down. You can see the cost has plummeted as this communication has evolved, and we're now having the possibility of putting these small transponders on very, very small, inexpensive pieces of assets. And we all know that the LPG industry is a very asset capital intensive business, and we need to make sure we look after those assets properly. So to be able to measure and monitor and track where they are is a big advantage. So what we did, we set up this working group in February this year to look at the IoT business. We agreed the scope in terms of reference. We drafted a report, the first draft, in July. At the World LPG Forum in Houston in October, we ran what we called a power play, which was a little bit like what we're doing today, but we had about 60 people in the room for an hour, and we basically just immersed ourselves into a program of discussion and brainstorming. And a lot of that information is now being built into the second draft. We're holding the webinars now here in November, and we hope to finalize the report next month. So that's the status of play. And the two key deliverables, and these are really things that we'd like to tease out of the group this afternoon or today, is to see how we can populate the report with good examples of how IoT is being used in the LPG industry, and use case studies where we can demonstrate it's making a difference, to hopefully try and encourage the rest of the industry to do the same thing. So that's just a brief introduction to the discussion this afternoon, and I'm now going to try and see if I can hand over the reins to Andre, who will go into a little bit more detail. Now, before I do that, if you have any questions, I think there's a way of putting your hand up. I think we've got about 25 people online. If you click on you'll see a little list of, you'll see webcam, audio, dashboard, and if you click on attendees, you'll see the people that are online at the moment, and you'll see that there's a little row of icons along the top. And I think if you click the little hand, it'll tell us that you want to say something. So please go ahead and do that. Or if you want to send a message, then do that as well, because we certainly don't want to make this a one-way discussion. We want to get some involvement from everybody out there. So before I hand over, let me just quickly ask the question. If anybody has a question at this stage, to ask it. I should have said down the bottom of the page there is a question tag as well, so you can send your questions through there, and between us we'll do that.
Yeah, Marcus Dreyer already he already shoot a question, which was if you were going to slide. If you were going to slide the deck, if you were going to share the slide deck with the participants, which I already answered, so we will be sharing with the participants.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. We'll do that. And also, just for everybody's benefit, we're taping this webinar. I think we've allocated an hour and a half. Let's see how we go. But however long we are, we'll make sure that the recording of the webinar is made available to everybody as well. They're all the slides I have. Andre, do you want to show your slides now, and then I'll hand over the reins to you?
Yes. Actually, I need to be the presenter, so thank you.
Done that.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So as David was saying, thank you. Good morning. I'm Andre Pimentel from ISA. I'm part of the steering committee that David was talking about IoT and to see how IoT can help the LPG industry, making it safer, more efficient, and getting the most out of it. We all believe that there are untapped opportunities in LPG industry with the use of IoT. And so what we'll be sharing today, it's a bit an overview of what is IoT. In roughly speaking. So what are the challenges to IoT adoptions, which you might face or have already faced in the industry? And I'm going to share a bit of a success case, which is close to ISA, but just as an example. What we would really like, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, is to foster you, to incentivize you to provide us some success cases, so that we can include it on the WLPGA IoT report. So that would be, I would say, a success for this session, to encourage you to share your cases.
Yeah, absolutely, and please don't be shy there, because one of the risks of this sort of topic is that people want to keep all the secrets to themselves, and we certainly don't want to do that.
Exactly. So moving into the presentation, so a brief overview of what is IoT. So there are several definitions of IoT. So according to IBM, it means it's looking for the growing range of devices that are connected to the internet that capture or generate a huge amount of information every day. And this can be on one side, a lot of data, just gathering data, and then this goes from the endpoint of the device to the platform that transforms this data into information. And so making, business decisions or business related decisions with this kind of information makes it typically much more efficient. You'll be having informed decisions on IoT. Google says it's a proposed development for the internet in which everyday objects have network connectivity, allowing them to send and receive data. So these are two monsters of the industry, I would say, IBM and Google, sharing a bit what they see as the IoT. So the more devices, and this goes from tanks, which we will cover it, or trucks, or smart meters, or in electricity, or productivity of people. I mean, it can be a huge range of applications of IoT. So if, according to these gentlemen, IoT generates massive amounts of data, and it's just the devices that are generating all this data, the cloud computing and the cloud network provides a pathway for this data to travel to its destination. Typically, it is a platform where you can see all the information, where you can smash it, you can work with it, you can understand and take business outcomes from there, business information, and that is ultimately the goal. From Cisco, so Cisco made a report, which is also a giant on industry. Some made a report a couple of years ago, and that they were comparing the number of people in the world and with the number of the connected devices. And so in 2005, we had 6.3 billion people in the world, whereas the devices connected to the internet were 500 million. And this kept growing. And today we are looking at, in 2020, there will be 7.6 billion of people in the planet, whereas we will have 50 billion of connected devices on the internet. This is a massive, and that's probably one of the reasons why, for instance, telecommunication operators are focusing on new telecommunication protocols and technologies that allow, not so much consumption, just a short range of data to be transmitted. And so all the infrastructures are adapting to this need. It's an insanely huge need that will come by, well, it is already there, the need, but it will for sure keep on developing. I don't know if you had the opportunity to follow on CES. So it's a Las Vegas show that normally it is in January. It's, I would say, the biggest consumer event of the world of technology. And it's every year it's thousands of new devices that connect to the internet, that sends data. It's just insane, the amount of data and devices that are connected to the internet providing information. On the challenges to IoT adoption, so this information came from a Morgan Stanley report, and so it's the first and foremost on the challenge to IoT adoption, according to executives from the top companies, it's the security. So security is obviously a concern on the IoT adoption, and more and more the companies are very focused on keeping their security, keeping their data, and also if you have a connected device that is out there in the field, for instance, a truck, wherever it is, you don't want someone to be messing with it and providing you, informations that might be wrong. So that would be catastrophic, and so they tend to understand a bit better what is IoT, how it can be secured, so that the information that they receive are from a trustful source. Then it's lack of standardization. So for those who have been looking into this field, you will see that there are for each type of device there are several brands. I would say a dozen, and plus these are the new ones. Probably have some tentatives. It would not connect through a SIM card, the telecom, but no, 20 years ago they connected through the phone line. This kind of, so there are a lot of legacy and a lot of protocols, a lot of companies, and having a place where you can standardize all this information and bring it together, it's also a challenge. So the more and more people are looking into having these protocols and the devices standardized all across the way, so that it would be easier to integrate, and you are not tied to any specific brand. Legacy install base, a bit in the following what I was saying. So you have old 20 years ago there were phone line equipments. Today probably most of our houses don't have a phone line, a landline anymore. We use mobile most of the time. So putting these legacy devices or even machines in an industrial scenario, imagine in a factory where you have these old machines, trying to pick this machine instead of changing machine, which would be a huge investment for a company, for instance, connecting it to a smart device so that this smart device can send data instead of being the machine itself. So making let's say the dumber devices smarter. It's a bit one of the concerns in the industry. Also, the significant upfront investments. So it's the fourth region, the fourth challenge to IoT adoption. And most of the people assume that to start an IoT project, it requires an expensive amount of money, a huge amount of money. It's not necessarily true. It really depends how you go. Typically, more and more we see companies starting slow, making tests with a few companies, talking with the companies that have done it. So trying to gather as much information and starting slow with a small proof of concept and evolving from there. So then we have return on investment, and I was very surprised that this is the fifth. I would believe this would be the first. Because it doesn't matter if you spend $1 or $1 million. In the end, it's about how much you get from it. So this is the fifth, and last but not least is data integrity, which is a lot of related with the security. So being able to trust the data sources and making sure that the data that arrived, it's the accurate data, it's obviously a concern. I would say that more and more these challenges are being faded, but still this is a bit the study that came from executives from Morgan Stanley. Moving forward, so entering into the success case, so we have tank telemetry. So this is a tank in Canada, actually, where we have equipment, and I'm going to describe you a case of one of our customers in Canada as well. It's called Rainville. The customer, it's an LPG distributor, one of the biggest in Quebec. And what they decided to do a few years ago is to look into the tank monitoring industry, and they wanted to understand how this could benefit them. The return on investment for tank telemetry. And so what we started, it's with 30 units. We elected 30 tanks. We installed 30 tank monitoring devices, and we measured it for a few months. So we had the previous data. So how was the tank filling before, in the months before? We have all the data before, so we could compare it. And the results were very interesting. So DIP, which indicates the tank level before the delivery, it was on a highs and downs. So sometimes it was a 60% or 70%, which was very far from optimal feeling. There was even one time between December and January where you can see that there was a rain out, so tank was dry, and then they had no information. And so this optimal value, actually, we were able to optimize the tank level before delivery in 30%. On the other way, the drop, which is the amount of LPG, the amount of gas that it's delivered that is delivered, it increases 34%. So in one way, in those 30 tanks, before they had highs and lows. Sometimes they went in a truck drive to go there. They had no idea how the tank level was. Sometimes they went there just to feel 10% maybe. On other times they were caught by surprise and the tanks were dry. And so what this gave to them, it was actually an ability to control their operations and their logistics far better. Making into a table, so they were able to increase the total volume of deliveries in 49%, while the number of deliveries reduced to 18%. So this shows a bit what IoT or this kind of example of IoT can do for this specific industry. With a few units, they understood that they would have more information, more insights about what was happening on their tanks, and with that they took smarter business decisions, and this ultimately influenced the profitability of their business, or the operating margin. So that's I would say the thing that influenced the most Rainville to start rolling out tank monitors in all their tanks. So they have a few tens of thousands of units, and still rolling out every year more. This is just an example of how Rainville can do it. I can give you another example. Also in Canada, we have a customer that followed more or less the same path, but what they are doing, it's actually taking advantage of a mobile application. So we send the data. They get the data in the platform. They send it to a mobile application that the consumer has, and they can request. They can make notifications. They can increase the marketing. They have a new marketing channel, and all this information and trusted data is able to provide them a lot of information and new communication channels for the consumer. So more and more we are seeing IoT in LPG, on logistics for either the tanks, when you can optimize the routes. For instance, I just saw we were discussing with a company, a very interesting company that has a tracking solution for trucks, but not to know where they are, but they track exactly the state of deterioration that some of the components are. What they give for instance, what they could give to Rainville, it's information about their fleet, and have a predictive maintenance. So they tell with a fair good margin error what is when they should take that truck to maintenance. So this avoids having problems, or the truck is stopped, which has a huge impact. I mean, there are a lot of technologies out there, and that's why we want to get from you. Either if it is already on the field, if you have tested it, or if you will, it's something that you are thinking of and makes all the sense. If you can share it with us, please feel free. It would be great. As I was saying, IoT and LPG, we see it, going from avoiding tank runouts or truck going down, proactive and predictive maintenance, improving delivery and logistics, and we see it much more going into the business area. So where you can increase market share, you can make it, much more consumer friendly. You can convert customers, even if we show how LPG industry it's gathering this kind of technologies. It might be much more easy to use. It might be more, for instance, less expensive, and maybe the adoption of LPG can be fostered. They can make consumer profiling with all the data that you get. You can make marketing tools out of the data that you get from your customers. Obviously, following the data privacy regulations among the regions, but you can always take this kind of data from all these devices. And so again, what we would like to encourage you is for you to share your success story. Tell us, a bit what is some IoT project that you have done in your company or that you have seen in other companies, some kind of what would be something that you would like to see. We would very much like to include this on the report, on the IoT report. You know, the more information we have it, the better. I think it would be much more interesting to read with a lot of success stories and, you know, some looking into the future, maybe in 5 years. So I remember, David, from the Power Play, that there was a group that proposed an even LPG delivered by drones. I mean, I just got that in my mind, and I never know when it's going to happen or if something's going to happen. You know, I remember Dick Tracy talking to his watch, and today you have smartwatches all over the world. So I mean, this is something that came out from the Power Play, the drone LPG delivers. But you know, feel free to share some ideas of the future, of the present, or the past. Just as long as you share it, I think would be great. This is pretty much the short presentation about IoT. Where does it come from? Success story, and this kind of request and encouragement. David.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. Marcus has just made a little comment here, and I totally agree with him. One of the benefits of tank telemetry, that your example in Canada, is that you might have a contract, a bulk LPG contract with your customer, and you can monitor his tank level. And you know when you're putting your product in, but if his tank level suddenly goes up, then you can maybe just ask him where's he got that from. So it's a way of tracking your customers' buying behavior, which is a very good point. Yeah,
absolutely. And that, I mean, in South America and Central America, it happens a lot. Also in some East European countries, as Mark is saying. So yeah, illegal deliveries. And if you have a tank monitor, you can definitely understand what is happening, if it was filled, if it was you or not. So definitely, absolutely. Thanks, Marcus.
So I think we have 25 people online, so don't be shy. I know many of you have already said, I can hear you, when I did ask the question about half an hour ago. So hopefully that's got you loosened up. So please, for those of you who can hear me or can hear us, and hopefully all of you can now, just use that little question tag and just write a couple of words so that we can respond. I have got another example which I'll show later on with regards to the use of IoT with the cylinder business, which is a really exciting one as well. But does anybody else have anything to say, or I think we can unmute you if you'd like to speak as well. There's a way of doing that here. So we're well, I don't know about Andre, but I'm pretty new to this webinar thing. I've sat in on a few, but I've never driven it, and that's why you see my name isn't actually there. I'm there as Mimi Brasseur, who's one of our team in Paris. I've had to use her login details to get in this morning or this afternoon, so you can tell how effective I am with this this control panel. But I can certainly see you all there, and I can see if you make any comments. So is there anybody else listening in would like to cover anything else, or would like to make a comment? Particularly, we are looking for these case studies. What we'd like to do is to include them in the report. And they don't need to be they don't need to reveal any sensitive details. We can make them generic, so it's not going to embarrass anybody at all. So we've got a question here from Kambala. Does anyone know if IoT has been implemented to effectively track cylinders? Yes, absolutely yes. Andre, do you want to answer that first before I can put a little comment in there?
That is a very, very interesting question, and I'm paying a lot of attention into that issue. So the request of tracking cylinders, the domestic cylinders, the 11 kilo or 13 kilo cylinders, it's been there for a long time, that need. Point is, typically it is a juggle between the functionality and the feature and the price it costs. So a GPS module can be quite expensive, maybe more expensive than the cylinder itself. which would make not that much sense, on the return on investment side. So more and more, we are looking into. There are people, companies working on that project. I know that some of the companies in the industry, and I remember, Mopeka, for instance, which is a UK company, a startup that came out a few years ago. They have ultrasonic solutions, Wi-Fi connected, so it's a bit on the cheap side because it does not cellular or GPS, so it's very interesting. I know that there are other startups coming up with this kind of solutions. I even remember that. Vodafone and Iot and SHV, I think they launched an IoT program a few months ago, maybe in the summertime, and the challenge was precisely to have tracking on cylinders. So I know that it's work in progress. There are already effective cylinder tracking technology and devices. The point is the price point, if it makes sense or not, having into account the cylinder tracking. And as we know, more and more the time that passes, it will become more affordable, either GPS technology or the modem technology. So it will get down to a point where it makes sense from the business standpoint. The technology is there, the solution is there, and I think that the business sense will be there very soon. Thank you for the question, Kambala.
Yeah, let me just add to that, Kambala. The WLPGA produced a report about 3 or 4 years ago on this whole question of cylinder management. Basically, we were just asking the question: how can we make our cylinder population more robust? How can we protect them? The cylinders in the marketplace. How do we stop them being stolen, and so on? And we interrogated 15 countries where there were large cylinder populations, and that report's available on our website. And it does touch on, even then, I mean, going back 3 or 4 years when this was written, it does touch on the possible use of technology to help in that area. The example I was going to give you was one that is being piloted at the moment in Africa. And if you've been to some of our global technology conferences, you will have seen some of the work that's going on in that area. And it's all surrounding the use or the development and use of a smart valve on a small domestic cylinder. And basically the valve sits on top of the cylinder. It has a small mass flow meter in there. It has some technology that allows it to talk to smartphones, and it will allow that photograph I showed earlier today, those 2 young children collecting a bag of charcoal. It will allow the consumer to buy just a small quantity of LPG, and I'm talking about 100 grams or 200 grams of LPG at a price which is similar to a small bag of charcoal. So immediately you can see that it tackles this whole question of the entry barrier for people with limited income. And this technology, it's being piloted at the moment. There are several hundred households in Nairobi are using this smart valve. And the business model, I'll describe it very, very briefly. The business model is the LPG supplier puts the cylinder, full cylinder, and smart valve with a hose and a regulator and an appliance, puts it into the consumer's household on consignment. Effectively, it's on consignment. And then the customer can buy these small quantities of LPG from the LPG distributor. Now, what's really scary about this technology is that the LPG distributor knows exactly when the consumer is buying the gas, because they're actually notifying the bank, they're putting a request through, so they know exactly what time of day the gas is being purchased. When the cylinder is nearly empty, they will go and change it for a full one. Now the customer doesn't mind if there's maybe a kilogram of LPG left in the cylinder, because it's on consignment. It's not theirs anyway. So the gas company will know when to call, because, for example, the customer might be buying gas on a Tuesday evening at 6:30 every week. So they know they can go around at that time and simply swap over the cylinders. And they also have and this is really interesting, they've also determined the rate at which the gas is being used through, obviously, the purchasing pattern. So they were telling me that they almost know, and this touches on this issue of consumer privacy. They almost know what the customer is cooking at a particular time of the week. So that's really scary stuff and very powerful stuff. But the interesting thing that's come out of all this is that they can determine how much money, how many dollars the household spends on LPG, comparing to charcoal, for example, or wood, which is what they were using before. And what they've determined, and they've proven from the trials, is that the household actually spends less using LPG. It's blowing the myth that LPG is more expensive than traditional fuels. It isn't. And the reason for that is that these charcoal fires, these wood fires, have to be kept sustained through the afternoon, after lunch has been cooked, into the evening. And all that's wasted energy, and it's polluting. So with an LPG stove, you simply turn it on and then you turn it off. So they've been able to determine how many dollars these households are spending on energy. And it's helping us a great deal when we go and talk to stakeholders in different countries where traditional fuels are being used. It allows us to go in there and say, hey, look, LPG is not so expensive after all, and here's the evidence. So that's just a little example of how IoT has been applied to the cylinder market. And then finally on that, I don't know whether I should say who, but I have been talking to a cylinder manufacturer who is well down the road of putting this technology onto their cylinders to enable full tracking to take place. And if anybody wants to know which company it is, then separately you can email me and I can tell you. But I probably better not say online. So that's just a little bit more feedback on Kambala's question.
Thank you.
I just unmuted Kambala so that you know, the communication it's simpler. So Kambala, any other questions or comments regarding the cylinder tracking?
Look, I think from what I'm hearing now, firstly, thank you for that response. It's quite informative. South Africa has a low LPG penetration, and there's a market that I'm particularly targeting, trying to use big data and the power of the internet. So one of the biggest problems, sorry, there seems to be an echo here.
Yes, I think if you lower your sound, it might be.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, far better.
Yes. Yes. So I think yeah. So that smart valve solution, I can see it working in this SADC market. One, because people want LPG, the myth of it being expensive, and the safety aspect of it, because as you would know, in South Africa there's a lot of rogue guys. They steal cylinders and they cross-fill, and yeah, it just makes it so they undercut the market. One, they steal cylinders. Two, right, and it's unsafe. They're creating this problem for LPG wholesalers like myself, who are legit and who have the license to do this thing, because now people think this thing is unsafe. Why? Because this guy has stolen the cylinder. He hasn't revalidated it, right? He hasn't tested it. He's just cross-filling at the lowest price. You understand? So because he's also colluding with the wholesalers who are just buying product from the refinery, not investing in the cylinders or the tanks. They're just on selling. They're just basically trading the product. You understand? And you get these rogue guys that steal the cylinders, right? And they cross-fill, which creates that negative perception of LPG usage, because now if anything goes wrong with that cylinder, maybe it's a cylinder that was supposed to have been really validated like 6 months or a year ago, and something goes wrong, it's a gas cylinder that has exploded or whatever the story is, or has burnt or has caused some problem because it hasn't been revalidated, it hasn't been pressure tested, nothing has happened to it because this guy has stolen it. So this smart valve solution may come in very handy, especially for that market. Thank you.
Thank you, Kambala. Thank you so much for your inputs. I think this is, when looking into the smart valve chapter, in the solutions for the report, I think this is the kind of information that we are looking for. Reasons behind it, examples of the real world happening, and what justifies this again. So again, thank you, Kambala. I've just muted you for just the organization. Again, thank you very much for your inputs. I see Hakan Samsi. It's with his hand raised. Hakan, I just unmuted you, so feel free to add any other. Hello, Hakan.
Yeah, do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Well,
we can hear you. And I turned off the sound. Okay. I can. So we don't see sound.
How do we get Hakan back again?
I don't know. Maybe he disconnected. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, if he joins again. Oh, now I see it again.
It's back in again. Yeah. He's having trouble with his mic. He said.
Yeah. So we have questions from Aditya, which if you can point us to more information online about the smart valve. So David,
I put an answer there, and if Hakan wants to just put his question, type his question in, then we can probably help him on that one as well. But there's a couple of companies, Aditya, who are involved in the trials in Africa, and there's trials in Tanzania and also in Kenya. They're very, very similar types of technology, but they've got different business models. And all I'll say is that it's just a very, very exciting time now that we're seeing this sort of technology drilling down right into the small cylinder market, because breaking down this entry barrier is something that we've been trying to do for years. And just another comment on Kambala's point. If you can hear me, Kambala, now, what I'd say is I'm sure that you know Kevin Robertson at the South African Association. I think over the years, Kevin and I have worked together. The WLPGA actually runs good industry practice workshops. I'll put a little advert in here, and we come into countries and we run 1 or 2 day workshops, and we focus on good industry practices. And I did one with Kevin some years ago. Perhaps we should do another one. So you can probably have a word with him. I'll certainly mention to Kevin anyway. We've heard from you that this is still going on. And they've been. I was actually last week. I was in Sri Lanka. We ran a 2 day workshop in Sri Lanka. We had about 120 people there, and it was a really interesting 2 days. So we do these 3 or 4 times a year in different parts of the world, and we'd be very happy to come back to South Africa again. So that's the end of my little advert.
So Kambala, it's waiting. It's making a question. What it will take to have my company to run the trial in South Africa region?
Probably it would take a conversation between yourself, Kambala, and one or both of the companies. At some stage, they're going to be starting to commercialize this technology, and they're on the cusp of that now. They're still doing pilots. But at some stage they want to sort of spread their wings a little bit, and I honestly don't know what their appetite is to run a trial in South Africa, but I can certainly check with them, and I'll find out. Which raises an interesting point. I mean, do we have all your contact details? I know you've all registered, and Cami, if you're listening, whether you can tell me if we've got everybody's contact details who have registered, so that we can, well, first of all, go back with the slide decks and also give you a link to the audios. But it will then also allow us to follow up on specific questions like this one.
So
I'll check with Cami. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, has anybody else got their hand up? I've got
David, I can't hear you anymore. So Kemi is saying that she can listen. She can listen. I'm listening quite well.
okay. Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions?
You know, Marcus was pinpointing here the benefits of having tank telemetry. I don't know, Marcus, do you want to share any thoughts? I'm muting you on IoT in LPG and the other applications that you might want to share with us.
Yeah, hi everybody. You're thinking about tank telemetry or different ones?
Different ones. You know, IoT. I just gave tank telemetry because it's you know, it's something I can provide data from. But actually, if you go for smart meters, truck, you know, anything on IoT, any device connected in the LPG industry that can, you know, make the industry smarter and better. Anything at all.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to complement the PAYGO initiative which is going on and which I have seen in a couple of presentations in different events. I think that's really a great tool, and whoever came up with this, that's really something very innovative and a good thing to do. And so I'm from UGI International clearly looking into is traceability of cylinders, which was also talked about right now. And with all the RFID tagging and other means of little barcodes and whatever you can apply to the cylinders, so keeping track of where the cylinders are, I think that the problem of that it's not such a big challenge in equipping the cylinders with these tags. I think the major problem or the major concern today is, at least for us here, how do we process all the readouts and all the data that we get? It's really where do we read the data that we scan? Do we have the appropriate IT systems as the backbones for data reading, for data processing? Data reading that happens on different points can be in our filling centers at different points during the process line in the filling center, when the cylinders get loaded onto the distribution trucks, when they get handed over to the customers, when they are be taken back from customers. So it needs strong IT solutions that really process the data and gives us meaningful answers. And I have to admit, I have never seen one of those. I have seen many ideas about RFID tagging on the cylinders, but not really. That's what I'm looking for right now. If we could work on that a little bit more, I would appreciate that.
So just to understand a bit, you are looking into, or you think it would be of a great addition to the industry, cylinder tracking, the domestic cylinders,
Yes.
the big cylinders in general. I mean, how do you see it? The PAYGO energy? It's for consumption, I would say, and tracking. It's a mix of everything. So both PAYGO and EnviroFit are making a great job. I mean, it's being very interesting to see how the companies have been evolving. But you were talking about this kind of challenge that they are trying to solve so a lot in for instance in Africa, or you are mentioning regarding domestic cylinders in general.
No, domestic cylinders in general. Yeah, we have distributors. We have this discussion for a long time. Should we apply RFID tags or barcodes on all of our cylinders, which is anyway challenging because we have millions of cylinders out with the customers. So it would take a very, very long time to get all the cylinders equipped with barcodes or with RFID tags or unit identifiers, or however you want to call these little things.
Okay.
But we do not see this as a big problem. So for us, it's really, is there any good software or IT system out there, or where do our big companies which build filling centers stand today in that perspective? Are they innovative? Do they look into RFID technology in the filling plants. So you hear me stuttering around here. I have really no clear opinion here on where the journey might go once we have super visibility on where our cylinders are. Now, let me call it differently. Once we have all our cylinders equipped with barcodes, with reading devices, readable things, what can we do with the data? Or where is technology today?
Exactly. We fully understand. I mean, it was saying about so in that what the definition of IoT. So you can have a lot of devices sharing data and sending data, but if you don't have a place where you can gather all the data and extract the information out of that data, it will be very hard to take the most out of it. So definitely, I mean, within all these solutions, I would say that there is one that is transversal to all of them, which is the IT platform, or the platform, I would say, that generates, all this information, reports, and they provide you, actionable actions to actually help you to make the best decisions. So fully agree, Marcus. Thank you for your sharing. I don't know if you want to share or any other system or challenge that you have in UGI.
No, that's it for the moment.
Okay, Marcus, thank you so much for your presentation. I mean, it's very important to have this platform, definitely. And David, I think we should consider giving this feedback. I think we should consider also having kind of a subchapter focusing on platforms. Several platforms that can generate. I think it's and they are agnostic to the solution. You see, so I think it's a very, very good point brought up from Marcus.
Well, certainly, we can certainly add something in the report on that.
Definitely. I don't know if there are. So Taha Yildrim also made a question regarding the information about the smart valve. I saw that David, you answered with the links for PayGo and Envirofit.
Yes, you can check the websites and you'll find a little bit of information there on what they're doing. If you want some specific information on the trials, then please get back to me and I'll put you in touch with the guys that are driving those two programs.
Okay. Any other questions? If you want to raise the hand, just to share some thoughts or how you see this kind of technologies, where it can be applicable, or crazy ideas about drone LPG deliveries. So I don't see any raised hands or more questions. Thank you, Ta, for being present in this webinar.
Okay, somebody wants to get in touch with me, so I'll put my email address here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'd probably come up as Mimi. Mimi is, I can assure you, she's far more attractive than I am, and she was the one who put this program together, and I had to use her login details. So I'll probably sort that this evening, so that when we come on later today, I'll be David Tyler. But there's my email address for those of you who want to contact me. It's not Mimi, it's David Tyler. And
so I'm assuming you are. So I'm including in the screen that I'm sharing both emails.
You can you see that? Because I think you come up. Oh, you've gone now. Or maybe maybe we're both Mimi. Okay. Well, we'll try and fix that little technicality this evening before we run this webinar again. The advantage of this evening's webinar, certainly this evening for me here in Australia, is that we can put your feedback into the second webinar, because we'll hopefully have people from the Americas in particular, although we found out that it's Thanksgiving Day today. So if there are any Americans amongst you, happy Thanksgiving's Day. It's just we're lousy planners. Thanksgiving Day doesn't come up on my Australian calendar, surprisingly enough, and therefore we made a bit of a mistake. I was told not to run this on a Friday, certainly not Black Friday, so we avoided Friday. So it was suggested that we come one day earlier, and unfortunately nobody picked it up that it was Thanksgiving Day. So my apologies to all the Americans out there. I know one or two will be dialing in, and hopefully we'll speak to them later. But it's been good to engage with you, and I think having over 20 log in for the first webinar that we've done is well, I'm very pleased with that. When will we get access to the presentations and audio? We'll get that to you. I think the presentations we can get to you probably tomorrow. The audio link, I think we need to get. I'll speak to Cami and Mimi, and we need to get that downloaded and get you the link for that. It'll be a big file, so there'll probably be a Dropbox link to it or something. So very soon. I suspect that I can get you the presentations quicker than the audio. And would you be interested in the other audio? That's my follow-up to that, because we'll have probably a totally, or slightly different, we'll have a similar introduction, but probably a slightly different discussion later today. So if you want both audio links, then just let me know. Yes, okay, I'll do that then. Thanks. And don't forget what I said about Kevin Robertson. So how are we doing, Andre? Do we have any more hands up, or have we exhausted everybody's interest?
No more hands up. I don't see any other hands up. I can see 20 attendees. Just wondering if, well, they can reach out to you. Well, let me share the screen. So let me share my screen.
You've got your contact details there, have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've included your contact details and my contact details. So if anyone wants to share, a story, an idea, an IoT case that they have with success or not with success, it doesn't matter. Just as long as it is, these kind of technologies and IoT and applied to LPG industry that you can see as a benefit going forward. Will be very much appreciated to have your feedback so that we could include it in the report. David, if there is anyone interested in participating in the IoT committee, I think it would be very much welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have one or two members of the committee online at the moment as well. Just a little story that I'll share with you, and I'm going back 10 or 15 years. When I did some work in Tunisia, and we were tracking vehicles, and we used some equipment from Siemens to do this, and it was live GPS, so we could track. We were doing a road trucking operation from Sfax down to Gabez. It's about 110 kilometers, and we could see every single truck on our computer screen as a little dot. And we could tell exactly, what speed they were doing, and we could monitor their acceleration rate and deacceleration rates, and their direction. And we had monitors on both the prime mover and the tanker. And with all the data that we gathered, one of the big benefits, one of the big deliverables, the client was British Gas. And one of the big deliverables from that program was that we actually created a league table for drivers. So we could actually monitor the drivers to the point where they could be actually ranked in terms of their safe operation. And we had a driver of the month. So we had a league table, and then we had a driver of the month, the guy who was applying, the speed limits absolutely correctly, and he wasn't harshly braking or fiercely accelerating, and so on. And it was a real benefit, a real deliverable that we got from that program. And all the drivers were so excited about this. You'd think that Big Brother is watching you, but we had a big discussion with them at the beginning of the program, and everybody bought into it. And this driver league table and driver of the month award was so well received. And we ran the whole program, incidentally, for about 3 years, and we had not one single incident. in that 3-year program. So we're very, very pleased, and so was British Gas. So there are some other benefits to this other than just monitoring assets. There's the human side to it as well, and that was an interesting angle to it.
Yeah, very good. I mean, it's and I can see it totally relating with the gas industry, as you mentioned.
Okay. Well,
last call for raise hands and questions. Feel free. Don't be shy.
Like an auction, going, gone. I think this is the last chance. We'll terminate it. We've been going for an hour and a quarter, and sorry about the false start. We'll try and avoid that later on today. But if anybody has any last questions, or if they want to just ask a private question, then come back to either Andre or myself. There's the contact details. All good? Okay. Well, let's draw it to a close, and I'd just like to thank everybody for participating, and we will certainly make sure that you get a copy of the report when it's finished. And yeah, I think that's all from me. Andre?
Yes, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for participating. Really great to have you in the session. Feel free to reach out to one of us, as David was telling us, to ideas, with comments, with more information. We are always happy to have other thoughts on board, and we'll be sharing the presentations. That's pretty much it. Thank you, ladies
All
and
good.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much. I'll close the screen now.